If you want a movie recap, you can continue watching, but you may skip to the review section if you don't want any spoilers. If you have seen the movie and just want the hidden plot points that aren't explained in the movie, you may skip to the movie breakdown section. Let's start with a recap. The story starts with a stranger visiting a little girl one cold winter morning. He has apparently brought a birthday gift for the little girl from the church, and he is a friend of a friend of a friend. The scene changes, and we meet FBI agent Lee Harker, who has come to investigate a homicide case with her partner, Agent Fisk. Lee Harker is shown to have some psychic powers as she notices where the criminal could be hiding. She warns Fisk, but he is more impulsive than her and barges inside the house to catch the culprit. Yet he dies right after as he is hit from the bullet, and Lee Harker ends up catching the culprit as he surrenders to her. After that, she is asked to give a psychological test, and it turns out she is partially psychic. Suddenly, she is given a case of Longlegs, where the father of various households are killing their families rather brutally, and they all have little daughters at home. Basically, only a family of three each time. What they all have in common is that they are all good people who worship gods and love their homes, but they end up finishing their families by their own hands. Each time this happens, a letter is found in their house, namely from someone called Longlegs. The FBI believes that Longlegs may have murdered them himself, and it turns out to be true as Lee Harker puts together the case files and comes to a conclusion that Longlegs may indeed be the catalyst of all these cases, but he never entered their homes himself. Reason why he was never caught. Lee Harker meets with Senior Agent Carter's family on a visit, and the little girl Ruby asks her what she wanted to become. We find out that Lee wanted to be an actress, but it was not considered a good choice of work. So she ended up becoming an FBI agent. After she comes back home, she calls her mother, who had been a nurse 9 years back. Her mother gives her much comfort, but Lee Harker notices something unusual, so she cuts off the call. When she tries to investigate, she ends up receiving an old greeting card addressed to the ninth birthday, which should be opened on her birthday on the upcoming 14th. It seems to hold a coded message with various symbols and a revelation 13:1. But Lee Harker uncodes it rather easily, finding out that the codes, when put together according to the date of murder, forms a symbol which is pretty satanic. The next day, she is called to another murder case site where Lee Harker tells her boss, Agent Carter, about her findings, and she believes that the murdered families are killed before 6 days to 14th or after 6 days of 14th. The girls of these families have their birthday on the 14th. Lee Harker concludes that there remains one more family which will be killed off to complete the satanic symbol of inverted two triangles. Lee Harker with Agent Carter visits the farmhouse of Chimera family to go into more details or find the spot of murder. They indeed end up finding a porcelain doll, which upon investigation reveals that the doll's head held an empty metal ball which produced some eerie sound waves. The forensics believe that this doll might be the carrier of messages or orders from Longlegs, since each family had this doll with them. They go to meet with Carrie Ann Camera, who was the only surviving victim of these crimes. She states that she was still alive because instead of her, a priest died and she would have too if she wasn't at school. She says it was all like a dark dream and she woke up after she met Longlegs. He gave her a happier life. And if he said anything, she would do it, even if it meant killing Lee Harker or anyone else. Lee Harker is startled and unsettled after meeting Carrie and Camera, but it is true that all crimes were instigated from inside the house, and Lee Harker believes that Longlegs might have an accomplice who helped him do all this. Agent Carter believes that Lee is also somewhat entangled with Longlegs since her mother made a call on 13th of her birthday talking about some intruder. Although her mother doesn't remember anything, Lee Harker still visits her, and she also wants to recall what happened back then. Her mother reminds her to check her room, and Lee finds a photo of Longlegs whom she had forgotten about at some point. This photo leads the FBI to catch Longlegs, and they interrogate him but find nothing significant. When Lee Harker goes to meet him, he's friendly to her but doesn't answer if he has any accomplices. He ends up banging his head and dying before Lee Harker could find out anything. Agent Carter and Agent Browning get together with Lee Harker when they panic, and Carter asks Lee to dig into her past because she must have been more familiar with Longlegs than anyone else. So Agent Browning, together with Lee Harker, go back to her house to ask Mrs. Harker more about her past. Just when Lee Harker gets inside her house, her mother shoots Agent Browning and ends her life. When Lee Harker follows her mother, she finds herself unable to stop her when her mother shoots a doll that looks like the young Lee Harker in the head and black smokes come out of it. At the same time, Lee faints and wakes up again to find herself in the basement, which is connected to her house. The movie then narrates the main plot, where we know that Longlegs visited Lee Harker's family when she was just 9. To save her, her mother made a deal with Longlegs where she had to help him with his plans. She did not want her daughter to go to hell. Mrs. Harker then became the accomplice who went to the houses of several people where their daughter was young and was born on 14th. Her job was to deliver the porcelain doll to each family which represented their daughter in the name of the church, and because she looked harmless, the families let her enter their door. This doll then became a conduit which whispered dark thoughts into the family until they did what Longlegs wanted them to do in the name of religion and God. Mrs. Harker was asked to watch the entire process, and she kept repeating the same thing with every family. When Lee Harker goes to Agent Carter to report him with the news, she finds that her mother is sitting there inside and they are celebrating their daughter Ruby's birthday. Agent Carter seems to be bewitched as he doesn't listen to Lee Harker and kills off his wife. When he makes a move on Lee Harker ends his life and also ends her mother's life when her mother also gets ready to end Ruby. In the end, she wants to destroy the doll, but her gun runs out of ammo and she just stares at the doll, with her and Ruby the only surviving party of the whole serial case. Now the question arises about Lee Harker, whether her and Ruby will inherit after Longlegs or will they learn from the crime and end the dark cycle. This movie hangs in between fiction and non-fiction as it describes how a happy and healthy family could easily fall into chaos if they are not strong enough to avoid the dark whispers or the lure of their darkest thoughts. Seven Deadly Sins would no longer just be a teaching, as the more deeper one falls, the worse their path becomes. Now, is Agent Lee Harker under the control of Longlegs from the very beginning? It can be believed so because she is seen as partially psychic as soon as she enters the field, someone who knows the darkest and deepest of lingering thoughts. She tries to stay away from praying as it scares her, and she becomes an FBI agent although she never decided for it. It is scary, but she indeed does so. And in the end, she recalled various things she did not want to remember. Like Longlegs had influenced her entire life trajectory, and her mother's death brought upon the finale. Now it is up to her if she wants to get out of the curse cycle or if she can end the curse cycle. Is the doll in any way very significant? Now, the doll's head had a metal ball inside that can transmit sound waves, which shows that certain intent can be transmitted through the doll and it messes up the mindset of the families, urging them to commit crimes. In a way, it can be said that the doll might as well be the symbolism of Satan or a messenger of evil. Maybe Longlegs was a victim of a similar doll? Now, why did Longlegs started all this? It's unclear why Longlegs started killing families, but he and Mrs. Harker both quoted Revelation 13:1 right before they died, which mentions a beast with 7 heads and 10 horns. The beast in question can be interpreted as being the Antichrist or a demon who rises from the sea to receive the authority and power by the dragon, Satan, to do his bidding. There is a second beast that appears in later chapters. In the film, Longlegs and Mrs. Harker are the beasts. They deceive and control the families, who each believe they are receiving a gift from the church. Mrs. Harker is an example of someone being manipulated by the original beast, Longlegs, to perform evil acts. Mrs. Harker believes that they are necessary to save her daughter, but she is being corrupted to the point that even after she is free from Longlegs, Mrs. Harker's help with ending families continues. She has become the second beast, so the dragon and Longlegs together are the inverse of the Holy Trinity. So we know that next in line is Lee Harker and Ruby. In the series, the murders happen within 6 days before or after the birthday, which likely symbolizes Revelation 13:1, which is 13 plus 1 and makes up 14. 7 is a significant number in the Bible, and the double of that represents completeness as well as divinity and deliverance. Longlegs might have believed that he was freeing the families through death. The film's finale also indicates that anyone, no matter how good they think they are as a person, can be swayed to do horrific and violent things if they think they are protecting someone or that they are doing it for the right reasons. All the characters at one point or another are forced or influenced to do something violent. It's something they might have never dreamed of doing. Harker even kills her own mother to save someone else at the end of Longlegs, and the cycle of harm continues. Starring Nicolas Cage as Longlegs and Maika Monroe as Lee Harker, the movie follows a young female FBI agent as she blows open a case of murders that were long thought to have gone cold. The horror thriller from director Oz Perkins earned rave reviews early on, but I would say it has a more creepy and dark vibe than being scary and horrifying. When one sees this movie, they would surely feel unsettled. The scenes, the theme, and the background make it immersive and thrilling. Although the ending was somewhat known, the plot is well written with a hint of metaphysics and fiction at right points. The message of the movie gradually becomes clear in the second half, but certain plot points were still left unclear and unresolved. Although you won't feel scared while watching the movie, it is guaranteed to make you uneasy. I watched it without knowing anything about the movie, and that is why it gave me a more thrilling experience. Subscribe, share, and like. Thank you for watching.